This is the second theoretical lecture of the week that starts in 10 of May, and this lecture is related with the sensitivity and variation analysis. So this lecture is divided into parts. In the first one, we are going to present the equation form of primal and dual solutions, and then we are going to apply it to the sensitivity analysis using a case study. So let's start with the equation form of primal and dual solutions. To illustrate these equations, we are going to use an example. So we have a linear programming problem, a problem involving three decision variables and three restrictions of the less or equal type. And we already present here the final table, the optimal one. So in the final table, we can identify the basic variables by the unit vector. So we have here x2, we have x3, and s2. So these are the basic variables. That is, the others as x1, s1, and s3 are the non-basic ones. So the solution is provided here on the right, and we include in this final table additional information. So this information is included here in order to illustrate the process of evaluating some properties related with the final table. So we divide the table in two parts. That is, the part associated to the decision variables. So this part here, which we call Aij. So we call Aij. We use index I for the lines. The line of the first restriction is line number 1, the line of the second and the third. Then we use the j for the columns. Column 1 corresponds to x1 and 2 for x2 and so on. And we have here the second part of the table, the part related with the slack variables that we need to introduce to transform the restrictions. So this is second part of the table, which we are going to call SIK. I for the lines of the restrictions, it goes from 1 to 3, and K for the column. The column corresponds to S1, S2, and S3. So we introduce here on top of this matrix SIK the original availability of the resources or the independent terms of the restrictions. So we have 320, 400, and 25, and we call this the vector BK. On top of the first matrix, we also have the initial coefficients of the decision variables, that is 15, 100, and 80. And here on the left, we also have the original coefficients of the variables. That is, the original coefficient of x2 in z is 100. S2 doesn't appear so on z initially, so coefficient 0, and x3 has a coefficient of 80. So let's start by verifying the value of the objective function. So we have here the optimal table, and we saw in a previous lecture that the solution of the objective function is equal for the primal and the dual formulation. So, and in the dual formulation, we saw that the value of the total opportunity cost can be obtained by multiplying the availability of the resources by the shadow prices. So the shadow prices are presented here on the top in the line of z, and they are the coefficients of the slack variables. So we extract this vector to here, and then we consider the vector bk, which corresponds to the initial availability of the resources. So this expression just tells us that the optimal value of z is the internal product of these two vectors. So what we show here. So this coefficient multiplies this and so on, and we get this value. So let's confirm now the values of the basic variables. We extract this table from the optimal one. So this is the SIK matrix. On top we have the vector BK, and the basic variables can be evaluated using this expression. That is essentially we obtain the values of the basic variable associated to a line by the internal product of the coefficients of that line of SIK by the vector BK. For example, x2 can be obtained by this internal product, that is this line by this vector. So we multiply 320 by 0.125, and then this part is 0, and then we multiply 25 by minus 0.75, and we obtain this value. Now for the other basic variables, the basic values in the other two lines, we do essentially the same thing. For example, in S2, and the value of S2 is, we multiply this coefficient by minus 1, this one 400 by 1, and 25 by minus 1. So this is what we have here, and the result is 55. Now the last basic variable x3 is equal to the internal product of the last line by the vector bk, that is 25 that multiplies 1. So, and of course we can confirm these values in the previous table. So we have here the list of basic variables associated to each line, and we have here the values that we just obtained. Let's look now to the value of the shadow prices. The shadow price can be evaluated using this expression, which involves the matrix SIK and the vector CI, which includes the initial coefficients of the optimal basic variables. That is, we have here the first is the coefficient of x2, which is the in the final base. Here the coefficient of s2 in z, which originally is 0, and the coefficient of x3 as we saw before. So these are the final basic variables, and these are the coefficients of z of the original z of these variables. Okay, so to obtain the first shadow price y1, we just need to multiply these coefficients by this one, that is the internal product of the first column of S by this vector. So we get the value 12.5. And for the second one, we get 0, and for the third one, we get 5, which of course we can verify here. So the first value is 12.5, second one is 0, and third one is 5. Now we have the reduced cost. So the reduced cost can be evaluated using this expression, which involves the submatrix Aij of the optimal table, which we reproduce here. So it involves the vector Ci that includes the coefficients of the optimal basic values in the line of z, in the original line of z, and we have also here the original coefficients of the decision variables, coefficient of x1, x2, and x3. So essentially, the first reduced cost C1 is the internal product of this column by this vector and then we subtract this value. So this is what we have here. So we have the product of these two numbers, then we get 0, 0, and then we subtract 50 and we get 12.5. So the same for the second one. So the second one involves the internal product of this column by these values. So we get 100 and then we subtract 100, that is 0. And the same for the third one. So we have the internal product of the last column by this vector, which gives us only 80, and then we subtract 80. So, and we get 0. So 12.5, 0, and 0, as we can confirm here, for example. So we have here, so we have here the matrix A, and the first reduced cost, second one, and the third one. So let's consider now the application to sensitivity analysis. And to do this, we have a study example that we present here. So the data involves two products, lamps and frames, which provide contribution margins of 80 euros per unit and 60 euros per unit, respectively, and three departments: a polishing department, a varnishing department, and a drying department. So the availability of this department is in the polishing department. We have 30 hours a day. In terms of the varnishing, we have a quantity of 24 centiliters available per day. And in terms of drying, we have 18 hours a day. In terms of sensitivity analysis, what we want is to find the intervals of these parameters, that is, the contribution margins, by which they can change without changing the base of the optimal solution. And we want to do the same for the availability of the resource, that is, we want to evaluate the interval by which the availability of this number of hours can vary without changing the base, the optimal base. So we have here the problem formulated in terms of linear programming. So the objective function is, of course, is the total contribution margin, which we want to maximize, and we have the three restrictions related with the availability of the resources, that is, what we are going to use cannot exceed what is available. And of course we have this kind of variables, that is x1 and x2, which are the quantities of lamps and the quantities of frames respectively. They must be positive. Sensitivity analysis is implemented after having the optimal solution. So we already have here the optimal simplex table. So the solution that we have here is x1 equal to 3, s2 equal to 3, and x2 equal to 5, and z is 540 euros. So as non-basic variables, we have s1 and s3, and to perform the sensitivity analysis, we need to complement this table with additional information. So we start by dividing the table in two parts: the part corresponding to the decision variables, which we call Aij. So columns here are identified by index j. J goes from 1 to 2, and in this matrix we consider the lines of the restrictions, which are identified by the indexes I, 1, 2, and 3. And we also have here this table, the table SIK, which corresponds to the slack variables. So here the columns are identified by index K. K goes from 1 to 3. And on top of this matrix, we introduce the initial availability of the resources, that is, the first one 30 hours, 24 centiliters for the second, and 18 hours for the third section. And here we introduce the contribution margins of x1 and x2, and also here on the left we have the initial coefficients of the line of z of these variables, that is, coefficient of x1 is 80, coefficient of s2 in the line of z is 0, and coefficient of x2 is 60. To interpret the numerical results, we are going to consider also the graphical solution, so which we represent here. So we have the solution domain identified by the boundaries of the restrictions. For example, restriction number 1, we evaluate first this intersection and then this one, and then we consider restriction number 2, we evaluate the intersections in the same way, and finally for restriction number 3 we have this line. So we consider the inclination of the lines of z, which we represent here in pink, and we conclude that, so we start here with these lines, and we conclude that we arrive to this point, which is the optimal one. And we conclude that it is defined by this line, restriction 3 and restriction 1. And of course, as we saw before, we have slack in resource number 2, that is, we are far from the boundary defined by restriction 2. So let's start with the coefficients of the objective function. So what we want to do is to evaluate the intervals of the contribution margins in which the base doesn't change. That is, the basic variables in the optimal set don't change. We saw that the contribution margins were involved in the definition of the shadow prices and also in the definition of the reduced costs. So in order to maintain the base, the shadow prices that are positive must remain positive. That is, the active restrictions must remain the same. And of course, that the products that are not being produced, which will have a reduced cost greater than 0, must remain also in that situation. So these are the expressions that we are going to use to perform the sensitivity analysis to these coefficients. So let's consider now the contribution margin of lumps. Lumps is the first product. We saw that the shadow prices are defined by this expression, and positive shadow prices that that we have in the optimal solution must remain in that situation. This calculation involves the internal product of the matrix of the columns of matrix SIK by the vector Ci, which has the original coefficients of the objective function corresponding to the basic variables of each line. But since we want to perform the sensitivity analysis to lumps, the contribution margin of lumps is introduced here as an unknown. And then we just need to perform these calculations. For example, the shadow price of resource number 1 is the internal product of this column by this vector, and we require that it remains positive. Shadow price of resource number 2 was 0, is not considered, and we have shadow price of resource number 3, which is also greater than 0. So we do the same analysis. That is, we consider the internal product of this column by this vector, and the result must be greater or equal than 0. So the first condition tells us that C1 must be greater than 20, and the second one tells us that C1 must be less or equal than 100. So by combining the two, we get the interval in which C1, that is the contribution margin of lumps, can vary without changing the optimal solution. Let's now interpret the results that we obtain. So we saw initially that the optimal is defined by the intersection of restriction 1 and restriction 3. So let's look to the inclination of these lines. So the inclination is we can divide the coefficient of x1 and coefficient of x2 and with the minus sign. So inclination of a1 is minus 5 divided by 3. Inclination of restriction 3, the boundary of restriction 3 is 1 divided by 3. And the inclination of the lines of z is similar, is c1 divided by 60 with the minus sign. So if we consider the inclination of the lines of z equal to the inclination of the first line, that is, we can have the lines of z here parallel to restriction 1, the meaning is this. So we can consider these two quantities equal, and we arrive to the conclusion that C1 in that case will be 100. That is the upper limit of the interval of C1 that we saw before. If we consider the inclinations of the lines of z equal to the inclinations of restriction 3, that is, the lines of z will have an inclination equal to this line, the line that represents the boundary of restriction 3. So in this way. So in that case, the lines of z and the lines of restriction 3 are parallel. So in that case, using this equation, we obtain the other limit. That is, what we were evaluating was the inclination, the variation of the, since we are changing the coefficient C1, maintaining the other, we are varying the inclination of the lines of z so that they become coincident in one case with one of the restrictions and in the other case with the other restrictions. Let's consider now the sensitivity analysis to the contribution margin of frames. So we use the same methodology as in the previous case, but now we consider C2 as the unknown. So the same condition is applied to first to the shadow price of the first resource. So we multiply these coefficients and obtain this result, and we must impose that shadow price number 1 should remain positive. Solving this in order to S2, we get this condition. And now, considering shadow price number 3, we have this expression in which from which we obtain this result. So this is the range of C2. Let's consider now the limits of the restrictions. In this case, we want to evaluate the interval of variation of these coefficients so that the list of basic variables in the optimal solution remains the same. So these coefficients, the coefficients of the limits of the restrictions, they are involved in the definition of the value of the basic variables. So we are going to use this expression, and we are going to impose that the current basic variables remain with a positive value. So we are going to start with the polishing section, so the first section. And we want to study the availability, changes in the availability of this of the hours of this resource, so that the list of basic variables in the optimal solution remains the same. So we need to use the matrix SIK, which we extract from the optimal table. We consider also the vector BK, which includes the independent terms of the restrictions. But since we want to study the variation of the availability of the first section, we considered here this as the unknown. And we need then to evaluate the value of each basic variable. For example, starting with x1, the optimal value of x1 can be obtained by the internal product of the first line of SIK by this vector, that is multiplying these coefficients and adding them. And this variable must remain positive. So from this condition, we extract the first condition for the availability of the polishing section. That is, it must be greater or equal than 18 hours. So looking now to the other basic variables in the list, we do something similar. That is, we are going to consider now the second slack variable of the second restriction. Now we multiply these coefficients, okay, and we require that the result. So this is the new definition, the new value of this slack variable. If we change the amount of B1, so the new value, in order to remain positive, leads to this condition. P1 must be lower than 42 hours. And considering the last basic variable, we now get the multiplication of these values as we show here. So the result must be greater than 0. So we extract the value of B1, in this case, less or equal than 90. So considering the three conditions, we arrive to the conclusion that this is the interval in which B1 can vary without changing this list. Let's analyze graphically what's happening when we consider the limits of variation of the first resource. So when we increase it to 42 hours, we essentially move this line up to this new position, that is, until it arrives to this vertex, which is defined by the other two restrictions. So in this case, of course, the optimal point, which was located here, will move until we arrive to that point. So in this point, of course, the list of basic variables starts to change. So this is the limit. So when we go from 30, this was correspond to 30 hours, to 42, we need 12 more hours, and each hour has a shadow price of 15 euros. That is, we will improve the value of Z by 180 euros. That is, we will have a Z equal to 720 euros. If we decrease it to 18 hours, so we move in the other direction. That is, we start to decrease it, and we move it until it arrives to another vertex. That is the cross of this restriction with the horizontal axis. And at that point, we will have a decrease in Z, and the optimum value of Z there is 360 euros. And now we consider the variability of the third resource, that is, in the vector bk, we consider as a known V3. And the process is similar. So we start to evaluate the new value of x1, just multiplying these coefficients. Okay, so in order to x1 remain in the base, we impose this condition from which we extract this condition for V3. Doing the same for the second basic variable, we get something similar. That is, we multiply this coefficient by this one by this one by this one, and we get this condition here. So requiring that S2 remains in the base, it's equivalent to say that it must remain positive, and we extract another condition for B3. And doing the same for the last basic variable, we obtain another condition. So considering the three, we arrive to this range for the variability the third department. Now let's interpret the results graphically. So the previous location of the boundary of restriction 3 was more or less as I represent here now. So the optimal was the intersection between this line and the blue line, which represents the boundary of restriction 1. So when we increase the availability, essentially what we are doing is we are moving this line, the boundary of restriction number 3. And we move it until it finds or until it crosses another vertex, this point here. And of course, the optimal remains defined by the same restrictions until we arrive to that point. So the optimal will move to that point. Since we can evaluate the coordinates of that point, we can evaluate the value of z there. But we know also that B3 must change between 6 and let me check here, the 22. Okay, so 22. But we have 18 in the standard, in the original situation. So increase it from 18 to 22 is to more. It's more for hours. But we saw that the shadow price of this resource is €5. So 5 that multiplies 4 is 20. This is the variation of z if we move the availability from 18 to 22. If we decrease the availability from 18 to 6, that is minus 12 hours, in this case 12 multiplied by 5 is 60, that is, we will have a reduction in z by €60, so it will be reduced to this amount, and the line in that case will move until it finds this vertex here in which we have these coordinates. Let's consider now the availability of varnish. So in this case, to build the inequalities, we consider here in BK B2 as the unknown, but we can see that we can consider only the second line, because in the first line and in the third line, in the column of B2, we have a coefficient of 0. So we can write only the equation with B2, the equation for the second line. The internal product in this case involves these parameters that we have here. So solving in order to B2, we see that B2 must be greater than 21. So we can see that this value can be obtained directly subtracting from the initial availability the slack that we have. And graphically we can see that in fact the availability of this resource number 2, which is represented here in green, we can increase it that nothing happened. It has not interfered in the solution. The optimal is there. It can interfere if we decrease it, and we can decrease a maximum equal to the total slack. In that case, it will be in that point, and we cannot decrease it more. Otherwise, the optimal solution will change. And this is it. This is the end of this problem, and this is also the end of this lecture. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next one.